I mean, unrelated to this project because I had a very bad experience yesterday with this new one that I just got the notice that they're having a ribbon cutting sometime next week. I don't know. I was driving from a one from the back end, like I was telling you, adjacent to the railroad, and this guy just parks his like must be a 40-foot, trailer, and he's unloading it right on the street.
Yeah, I mean,
So I had to wait for him to go get his, forklift, from inside and get a. Believe me, if he wasn't bigger than I am, there would have been a fight.
yeah.
I mean, you can't be unloading a 40-foot, trailer onto a street, and you have, residents trying to get by, and they simply cannot. So these are the type of
Yep.
things that we have to consider when we have the storage buildings being erected. That we really have to take into account the loading, the ingress and egress, and the factor. That's very important.
Well,
Yeah.
as an architect, when I'm working on this site, it's a unique corner. It has a unique intersection, and it's an entrance to the east, and it's an entrance going to your community as well. So the context of the material that are being used on the front end of this will be some of the material that will be used in the higher ends over on the east side, and as you're coming back in. So it'll be a nice little unique element. You won't even think that's a storage building. You'll think that that's basically part of the in the
Right.
community.
At this point, if we don't have any more questions, we do have any more questions or concerns from the dais? No? If not, we need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion made by Councilman Galvin to approve tab I. The motion was seconded by Councilwoman Keys. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Item passes with a 3-2 vote. Just for
What
the
is
record,
that
yes votes were Councilman Galvin, Councilwoman Keys, and Mayor Joseph for the yes votes. The no votes were Councilman Bieneme and Councilman Desime. Item passed with a 3-2 vote. Tab J, proposed resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, approving the Florida Department of Transportation recommended traffic rerouting and roadway improvement project along portions of West Dixie Highway, Northeast 6th Avenue, and Northeast 125th Street, further authorizing the city manager and city attorney to execute the off-system construction and maintenance agreement in substantially the attached form between the city of North Miami and the state of Florida Department of Transportation to delineate the responsibility for the construction and maintenance of project roadway improvements, providing for an effective date and for all other purposes. That was tab J.
Ready? Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. John O'Brien, Transportation Manager. I'm going to try to go quickly through like an overview, and then if you have more detailed questions, we'll get into that. But I'm very excited to be able to talk about this project. It's something that you have seen before, but you really, I hope you can see it in a different light and approve it, because this is a really great opportunity for us that if we don't take it now, we will likely or almost certainly not be able to get it done later. So I'm calling this a 5 Points Transportation Improvements, a catalyst for development. It's not just a transportation project. It really is to try to accomplish the things that council wants to do in the city. I attended a meeting a couple of weeks ago. They're trying to put up, let's say, a building a little bit larger. And some of the comments were, yes, that's a beautiful building, but that doesn't belong here. We have a place in the city where we want the target of the development, and that's the Central Business District. And the Central Business District, as you can see in this picture, encompasses Dixie, Northeast 6th Avenue, 125th Street. Right in the middle of that is what we call the 5 Points intersection. Everything that we want to accomplish in this red circle, this is what you guys have approved for up to 150 feet of development, is right there, and the traffic will end up on that intersection. This is what we're going for. This is the vision. I stole this from the CRA plan. You know, currently we have the low scale stuff. We want to have it much more high density, much nicer buildings. But this is what the conditions are now. It's an absolutely failing intersection. I don't think there's anyone here that would deny that we try to avoid this intersection as much as possible. I will not drive south on Dixie into this intersection. It is just too crazy for me. And imagine being a pedestrian sitting in that intersection. So if we want to accomplish those goals, we're limited by what things are looking like. And this was from the FDOT presentation.
Where's the blue van?
These are actually individually numbered accidents that occurred in 1 year. So we have 93 accidents a year on average in this
I
area.
think so.
The little picture, I don't know if you can see it. You know, can you guess which way those cars are coming? I'm a pedestrian standing there, and I'm trying to gauge, oh geez, where am I going to go? It is a very dangerous intersection, and the improvement that they came up with should reduce accidents by 33%. That's over 30 accidents with injuries, with property damage that would get fixed. This is the area that's going to be somewhat affected because we are asking the traffic to be diverted at 128th Street. And there was a lot of talk that the development would be hurt. I believe it's just the opposite. By making the changes that were recommended in that study, these businesses, which have had the benefit of the full traffic being open for the past 15 years, it's essentially abandoned. I've seen this sign going out of business on this business for many years now. The Miami Way Theater, we're all familiar with. And look at the way these cars have to back into Dixie Highway. That is limiting development potential. If we do this, we're going to take out one lane in each direction and put on-street parking on Dixie Highway so that these cars now can park on the street. We'll be able to add tremendous amount of foliage. This will become our street. It will no longer be FDOT's, the portion between 128th and 125th. This is, I tried to, their drawings are so complicated that it would lose me. This is all that's being requested in essence. So this is the 5 points, and where you see the X, they'd like to close the southbound Dixie Highway when it reaches 6th Avenue. The traffic would be diverted that wants to go south would be diverted at 128th Street, which is where the Publix is, and it's already a wide street, it's already one way. There will be 2 signals that will be synchronized, and it'll move the cars from Dixie to 6th. And what this accomplishes, it makes the intersection, instead of a crazy 5 points, it'll just be 4. Now when you're a pedestrian, you know where the cars are coming from, and you take the green light that used to go to that southbound Dixie and distribute it to the other directions. So it's a relatively simple idea, but the benefits are tremendous from it. This is something from the downtown concept plan that was adopted in 2014. So there are things that we've done since FDOT presented this, which makes this more important. We want to have greenways on 8th Avenue, on West Dixie. We want to have tremendously better streetscape on 125th Street. But we're asking people to walk through that 5 points intersection the way it is.
Can't do it.
And by making this change, you'll be able to tie in all of these other projects. The item before you is a little odd because it talks about the interlocal agreement. FDOT is footing the bill for all this. They've already footed the bill for the $500,000 study, and they'll pay for the up to $4 million to get this done, including the improvements to our streets. The agreement that you have before you is saying that, okay, FDOT, thank you, but we will maintain the stuff that you improve on our streets, Northeast 7th Avenue, 127th Street, and a little bit of 123rd Street. And like I put there, you know, last chance. This is it, going once, going twice, going 3 times. The rest are details that if you have more questions on the specifics, because I know it always comes down to the details. But I hope we don't get too bogged down in the details because we really want this to happen.
Through the mayor, real quickly, I'd like to put on the record for the council's consideration. Keep in mind, we are bringing this to you to get consensus so that FDOT can advance fund this project. If we don't come to some consensus or something that we can support and get to them, that funding will either be gone or it'll be in a 2050 budget trial.
Gone.
It'll probably be gone. So I just want you to keep that in mind as we're going through the consideration
Okay.
of this.
Thank you. At this time, we'll open the item to the public. For anyone who wishes to be heard, please come forward to the mic for your 2 minutes. And the price is right. Well, if the price is right, then you'll win.
Good evening, Kevin Burns, 2065 Alamanda Drive. I have to commend John for bringing this back. About 4 years ago, FDOT had proposed a different plan where they were totally shutting down northbound on West Dixie Highway from 6th Avenue and from 125th. And the community and the neighborhood business owners were in an uproar over it because it was going to drastically hurt what they felt was their business and their business models and the whole traffic flow. It didn't make any sense. I'm glad to see that they have come back with a much less intrusive plan that may work. This is a good first step, John, you and your staff and FDOT. Again, there hasn't been that much discussion about the negativities of this because people do realize that something has to be done. And just to let you know, that closed up bridal shop, the old Goodwill store, whatever it may be, it might look like an old abandoned building, but it has a price tag of almost $2 million on it for sale. There was a recent group, local business group, that was actually trying to assemble large pieces of property there. So it may not look good, but there's a lot of stuff happening in that area. The Miami Way Theater will probably be coming at some point in time in the near future to you all for some new development in that area. But I think this is a minor project that you can get behind or at least initially support FDOT. You always do have the chance to oppose if they change something too drastically. And again, I think Transportation Department did a good job listening to what the community business owners had to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Public hearing is still open. Public hearing is now closed on the item. I will come to the dais for any questions, concerns, discussions.
Mr. Mayor, I'm a little confused because the maps provided in the packet online were hard for me to decipher. Are they fully shutting down Dixie on the north side of 125th Street? Or please describe for me again how
In
that's.
fact, I have up now a more detailed slide, kind of zoomed in. They would give us these giant charts that you couldn't understand. Can you see, Dunya? There you go. Okay, so this is like a zoomed in on the actual spot. So what's closing is just the southbound. Northbound is still open, and you'll see what that green area is. That is now a transit hub. The transit stop in front of the 7-Eleven and the one in front of McDonald's are the busiest ones in the city. Approximately 600 people board buses every day at those stops, each one of those stops. This will become a transit hub, protected. Pedestrians can walk across safely with crosswalks. Up a little further north, you still have two-way on Dixie. Everything is still open. It's just you can't go southbound if you're trying to keep going to Dixie or west or south or east.
If you're eastbound on Northeast 125th Street, if
Yes.
you're eastbound, you can still make that diagonal northbound turn
Correct.
onto Dixie.
Correct.
Likewise, if you're westbound on Northeast 125th Street at 6th Avenue, you can still make that hard right to go. north of
Exactly,
Dixie.
exactly.
And the bus hub is going to take the place of the fountain that's currently there?
This is our call. This was something that we thought this would be a great place for transit. That is something that is negotiable. That is not a,
How much money are they giving us or setting aside for this project, and what's their timeline for construction?
Right now, well, actually not right now, they currently took it out of the long-range plan, but about 4 million was budgeted for it. And again, nothing, no dollars from us, they manage the projects, they manage the procurement and all the.
You
it's,
used the word was. Is the money in some budget somewhere?
Well, it is, but the person who has been kind of helping us out here may not be there that much longer, and we can. lose-
Actually, if I can help you a little bit.
Yes, please.
Let me answer this question. Again, we have the unique opportunity to have a mayor at the TPO board. So I've had numerous opportunities to sit down and talk with Harold. Harold, there's June. He's the FDOT guy. They June, if you want to say it in French.
He's a North Miami High graduate.
Yeah, exactly. So right before I got elected, as you remember, this item came and everything. Then it was rejected for many reasons, and ever since. Yeah, and I want to say thank you to John. John actually was the one who actually was very instrumental in exposing these, projects, that were rejected that could be possibly be a catalyst for development, like you said earlier. So we've had many charrettes actually on this item. We've had I think 2 of them upstairs on in the manager's conference room. And about maybe 2 or 3 months ago, he actually approached me because of something that's about to happen, and I cannot say it on the dais here. He said, please do whatever you can. Get the manager together and along with Mr. O'Brien to see if we can tweak this item, bring it back to the dais, and see that you can bring me something. Because something is going to happen where this money may be gone soon.
So if Harold is successful in spearheading this, the 4 million gets back into the budget, et cetera, when do we see this beautiful
Boy.
project? Or do we see it?
It'll, things don't race with FDOT, but they have streamlined things, but it would be a couple of years for sure.
Yeah.
A couple as in 2 or a couple
Yes,
as in
because
8?
the PD&E has already been completed,
Right.
so they're ready to go into design. This was a 3-year process to get here.
Right.
So a lot of that groundwork was done ahead of time.
That's all the questions I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. 125th, right? From west going east,
From west.
we will be able to turn south on Dixie Highway.
Correct. I think I have that, yes. So that's one of the things that, because I know that there was that idea and hope, and it was a very good idea, but it just didn't work to open up completely Dixie, the southern leg. But they did come up with a way to at least open up, like you said, if you're going west to east, on the left, it shows you can make that right turn into the Dixie southbound. So they tried to accommodate things as best as possible.
That's right before the Bible, the old Bible.
Correct.
Yeah,
yes.
that's when we're gonna open one bound of Dixie Highway.
But
Going
this
south
will,
from north. Yeah,
Wait, I'm confused.
and this would not
The
be in
south side.
conflict with
if
the
you come in
Greenway.
if you come in on 125th from west, from Alex, and going east, right? On Dixie Highway, you will be able to turn right now.
To go south on Dixie.
Yeah.
Go south.
You got it
That's
now.
the good
You got
one,
it
yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Wait,
That's
so,
one.
I'm sorry, John, let me ask you, so near the shop, repair shop, between
Yeah.
so that's
gonna
closed
turn
there.
right.
So that should make Mr. Stembridge very happy. Is that, was that?
You will
could-
expect
half-
that
half
both
happy.
s-
Well,
yeah,
half, well, that's good,
Yeah.
half happy with that, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm
That's-
good.
But
That's-
that restores traffic flow to all those
Yes.
businesses.
Yeah, that's
on
good.
the outside
Yes,
that
on
have
south
been
side.
shut off.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
You didn't
Yes.
tell me that,
The other
John.
question.
I wanted to
Hey.
save something for the show.
It's all in the movement of connectivity, walkability, the bikes and everything. But because right now nobody's crossing, crossing because they
It
cannot.
was closed, now it's gonna be
So
open.
this is
And,
part of the
and you
whole.
make a mistake, John, by telling me it's the same as the previous one. I
It's-
was there, it's a big difference.
Okay, yeah.
By
It's,
opening the southbound of Dixie Highway. That's
Yes,
huge.
Yes.
And now we don't have to use Northeast 7.
Oh, that's,
when we come in,
I would like to mention that.
Yeah,
That's
you-
another important thing. If you look at the accidents, and I don't know if Annie Montgomery is still here. Oh, yes, she is. 7th Avenue and 125th Street.
yeah,
It will become one-way southbound.
Mhm.
And what that does is it eliminates any left turns from 125th Street. Because right
Yeah.
now, there's no left turning lane, but people try to make that left.
yeah.
It's a
a-
constant problem.
Mhm.
And it opens up also some line of sight issues, so we can put more trees and bulb outs and
All
things
right.
like that.
100, another question, 128,
Yes.
it still will be a one-way?
One way, east to west.
Okay,
And like we discussed, there will be a new stoplight. That alone, I think, is $300,000 or $400,000.
okay.
Uh,
In front of Pizza Hut, by Pizza, yeah,
Is that what's there?
yeah.
Yeah.
No, Pizza
You
Hut
have
is on
Publix and
119.
Pizza Hut.
That's when.
Yeah,
He knows the pizza place.
yeah.
Domino's.
No,
Domino's.
Pizza Hut, no.
Where's,
Yeah.
Oh, that
CVS,
pizza.
yeah, on
Yes.
6th
oh,
Avenue.
that, okay.
We're
I
gonna
could
have
go
it
to
right there,
foundation.
yeah.
I could have that dog.
And there's several other little protections, what do you call those? The pork chops to protect the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
So you won't be able to go through. That was another concern that they had brought up. So they tried to, doesn't make everyone happy or as happy as you'd like to be, but it addresses most things, and you accomplish that fantastic thing, which is simplifying
All right.
that intersection.
Okay.
Thank you very much, John. As usual, you did a wonderful job, and now it's all clear in our minds, and all we have to do is take a vote so we can move on.
Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Oh,
I have a
Third
motion
vote.
made by Councilwoman Keys to approve tab J. The motion was seconded by Councilman Bieneme. All in favor?
Ah,
All opposed?
call Harold.
Item passes with a 5-0 vote. Tab L, proposed ordinance, first reading of the City Council of North Miami, Florida, authorizing the issuance, subject to the bond referendum herein provided for, of
What time?
tab L, of general obligation indebtedness and an aggregate is 155. I don't have the right one. Tab L, an ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of North Miami, Florida, authorizing the issuance, subject to the bond referendum herein provided for, of general obligation indebtedness in an aggregate principal amount without regard to original issue, discount, or premium, not to exceed the $155 million for the city of North Miami, Florida, for providing funds to finance the acquisition, construction, renovation, and improvement of various capital improvement projects payable from the full faith credit and ad valorem taxing power of the city, providing for and calling a bond referendum of the qualified electors of the city, providing for official ballots, providing for bond referendum procedures, and providing for an effective date.
Through the mayor. I had a bit of a technical issue this evening, and I wanted to have a couple of slides, but I'll walk you through. I did make some printouts that I handed out to the dais earlier, but give me some background on this item. This is a capital campaign that started, I think you all know, as an initiative of Mayor Joseph, and through various conversation has developed into a shared vision for the collective council. Largely in part, the city has not had any serious citywide capital investment in more than 4 decades. So the administration set out to develop a means to raise funds for the needed investment. As you know, this council approved the city administration back in April of 2016 to take all the necessary steps to engage bond counsel, FA, and all the necessary consultants to bring forth this item. The steps so far that we took to get here, we engaged some engineering consultants who've done citywide studies, on roadways, drainage, and technology needs that the city had. We also engaged an engineering firm to do some high-level cost analysis to ensure that the numbers that we were included have some level, well, not some level, but a serious level of correctness, if you will, as we move forward. Staff has presented this list of a list of projects to the community, several community meetings. The most recent were conducted in November and December of 2017. Those meetings, we took a different approach by, instead of saying, here are the projects, we solicited from the community, well, what would you like to see in these bonds, or what nuances would you like to see in the project? So the general response we got back was very supportive, and we were able to move forward to the next step. Today, we come forward with that next step, which we discussed back in December, or actually in November, which is to bring forward a authorizing bond ordinance, which contains the referendum language, gives the administration and city clerk the authorization to go ahead and hold a special election. It identifies the bond questions, the form of referendum, and the date of the referendum. The projects that are included in this, or the project categories, I should say.
The proposed projects.
Well, project categories that are in the bond ordinance are public facility improvements at an amount of $86.3 million, infrastructure improvement at $43.2 million, technology improvements, which are public safety and policing focused, at $5.45 million, and finally a category for affordable housing at $20 million. What would be included in public facility improvements, and it is defined in the ordinance itself. That would be construction, renovation, improvements of any of the buildings, the equipment, the infrastructure in our government complex, furniture and fixtures, parking garages, upgrades and renovation expansions of our recreational facilities and venues, turf replacement, playgrounds, landscaping, fencing, community senior centers. In our public infrastructure, I think we listened to our citizens, and included roadway construction, replacement of sidewalks, resurfacing of roadways, construction of transit station villages. Also, to be added was drainage and sustainability projects, given the state of our city's infrastructure. Technology improvements included equipment, citywide servers, Wi-Fi equipment, police equipment, license plate readers, and other security technology that would be used to not only provide technology enablers for the staff to be more efficient in our delivery of service to the citizens. And finally, a category that was added as at the discussion, our last discussion, we added $20 million for support for affordable housing. That could be the renovation or construction of affordable housing, both single family and multifamily. I know a big question on everybody's mind. Okay, well, what would this cost? And we will make these reports available to the public. But the city's financial advisor, Royal Bank of Canada Capital Markets, did a bond run, estimating that we would issue $155 million in 4 separate tranches. Those tranches would be in the notional amounts of, and this is an estimation. We assumed $40 million in the middle of 2018, another $45 million in August of 2020, $45 million in August of 2022, and the final tranche, which would get us to the $155 million in August of 2024. We estimated that would be a level debt service, and I think That yielded an average, net interest cost of 5%, and that's over a 30-year period. So the maturity of these bonds would take us from 2018, and the last bond would be paid off in 2054. So the 30 years plus the 6 years of issuance. So what does that produce for the average citizen? We did an analysis on what the debt service cost is based on the run that was done by our FAs. And based on that run and based on where the citywide assessed value is today, which is at $2.8 billion, and in estimating forward through 2054, we did the average tax base growth of 3%, which is average around the county. And something I need to say for the record, in estimating our assessed value, which has a big impact on our millage rate, we did not include the large expectation of the increase in taxable value associated with the solar media development. We wanted to take the most conservative approach when presenting these numbers. So what did that yield? Based on the 2.8 billion that we have now in 2018 and growing through 2054, our debt millage for the first year of the issuance of these bonds would only be 0.12 mils. So that's a tenth of a mil for the first year. At the highest debt millage, and that would occur approximately around 2024, the debt millage to pay for this debt.
Go ahead.
Would be 3.1 mils, or $3.10 per $1,000 of value. And then it would, from that point, it would go back down based on the payment of the debt all the way through the end. In the last year, we'd end up at, again, back at 0.22 mils to pay off the debt. So what does that cost the average homeowner? We looked at the city's average assessed value of properties as of as of the current year, and the average taxable value. Our average assessed value of homes in City of North Miami is $134,000. Based on that, the average tax payment to support this bond over the life of the bond would be $250.47 per year. Our average taxable value, which includes the exemptions that a lot of our citizens take advantage of, is $108,604. Based on that, the average tax payment associated with supporting this bond over the life of the bond would be $202.96 per year.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, and I know we do have homes in excess of this value, we did a run that looked at a house that was worth $500,000. It was assessed value of $500,000. Based on that value, this would cost that homeowner $934.41 per year as an average over the life of the bond.
Over the life.
Over the life. Obviously, from year 1 through year 30, the amount would go from a small amount to a large amount and then back down again. So that is the cost. The items addition.
I know you said you had a little bit of a technical problem. Right. Is there any way we can project this can this be projected on the screen for the citizen?
I don't think the camera is there, but what I will absolutely do, I don't think the camera would be able to pick it up because it's very small.
Yeah.
But what I'll do is we will post this tonight or first thing in the morning. We will create we'll have a bond tab.
How long will it make to make 100 copies? Because it would be good for them to have a copy if they come in to ask questions and everything.
Whatever copies we have here, we'll make available. And again, we have a bond tab.
As people come to the deck, we can see if someone can make copies for them, please.
But it will be on our bond tab. It's here. It's here. It's here. It'll be on our bond tab. We'll put it up on our bond tab first thing. The other item that we need to go through is the timeline for the general obligation bond. Assuming that we do first reading tonight, a second reading by the end of this month, we would project that referendum could be held as early as April 24th of 2018. But again, as part of your consideration for tonight, that would be a matter for the board to take up. In addition to the categories. The other thing I'd like to put on the record, the ordinance as it reads currently calls for the referendum to be done by a mail-in ballot. I know in some of the briefings that I had, that was an issue, so I want to make sure that we are free to address it and make it a normal referendum. But that was based on our discussion with bond counsel and the last few smaller cities that have done referendums have done them by mail-in ballot. So she was recommending, I guess, the most successful way that they've seen in the last couple of years. So, and actually, it is financially, economically, there's a savings in doing the mail-in. So, with that and making these items, I would actually turn it over to the mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Manager, and I think you've done a wonderful job, and you put it very eloquently. And now it's time to bring it. But before I take it to the public, I want to take this moment to really congratulate my colleagues, because when I entertained the idea of coming up with the possibility of levying a bond, and it wasn't a smooth a process, and it wasn't too palatable to a lot of people. And it's like in medicine, like we say, anybody will take any medication you give them, that's good for them. But you have to package it in such a way that they don't taste the actual medication. You have to sugarcoat, not just sugarcoat it, but you have to put the right excipients, in them, so that it can go down the tube. And then finally, when it makes its final reaction, that's good for the body, and then you realize, oh yeah, this was a good medication, so I need to keep taking it. With that being said, this is no different than someone who has a house that's like 50, 55 years old, and the roof is old, and you're not making that much money, you're barely making ends meet, but the house needs repairs. You need to change the infrastructures that are old, and windows and whatever, you name it. And we're not about 91, 92 years old now. A lot of things that we want to do, and that's what other cities do. City of Miami Gardens did it. The City of Miami just passed a $400 million bond, for infrastructure and affordable housing, and as well as resilience, building resiliency for sea level rise and whatever else that come with it. So again, in 8 years, we'll be celebrating our first centennial, and we have to start preparing for our first centennial now. If we don't do it now, then when? So again, I believe that this is a good thing, and we've done our best. We've had different workshops in different corners of the city, and many citizens have taken the opportunity to be heard. And it is this is the final product of the workshops that has been done. So with that being said,
one more thing, I'm sorry, sir. I apologize. I wanted to address, and I'm sure this question will come up, why is it just the 4 categories, and we've kind of kept it, I don't want to say nebulous, but it's kind of generic. The reason being is it allows us to have a little bit more flexibility as we go into the detailed scope of the project. So, if, a more complex drainage project as opposed to just a simple roadway. That's why you see in the language, you'll see a description of a bunch of different items that are allowable in the category. So I want it to be clear, we're not trying to hide anything. That is so that we can have maximum flexibility to address any of the citizens' concerns that were brought up.
Thank you very much. So now the item is open to the public. Public hearing is now open on item L as in Larry, or L as in late. Some people are late.
Good evening, Happy New Year, Mayor and Council. Bob Pashon, 13005 Coronado Terrace. As much as I understand, we want to have great flexibility. I personally would have wanted more specifics, because this is back to what am I buying and how much does it cost? At some point, everything I ever buy, those are the two questions that need to be asked. And granting great flexibility is one thing. I'd prefer to know exactly what we're buying. I was also disappointed in looking through all of this. We just finished 4 months ago a devastating hurricane. There's not one word mentioned about $155 million, anything dedicated to sea level rise. And I think as a city, it'd be more responsible of us to at least dedicate some dollars to that problem. And the cost. I look forward to seeing the numbers, because when the roadshow went around and the public hearings were had, we talked about the city of Jacksonville had a similar sized bond, and it cost about $3,000 or $3 per thousand, same as this. And Jacksonville's got 850,000 people repaying that bond. So if we're paying a city of 50, 60,000 people paying for the same size bond as a city of 850,000, I don't understand how it costs the same amount of money. So I'm looking forward to seeing those numbers. Thank you.
Henry Para, 2350 Magnolia Drive. I agree with everything that's been stated. I'm in favor of it, with the exception of exactly what Bob had said. I've just become sick and tired of reappropriations and monies and budgets being allocated to other things that were not in the scope or the original intent. And so, yes, specifics would make me feel more confident as to these are the projects. We may not know exactly what they'll all look like or what they'll be delivered, but there should be a budget. And we will say, yes, we want to do these particular projects. This will be the finite project that goes to the specific location or space or whatever it might be, or event, to crystallize it. Because again, there are elections, there are people who turn over in their positions, and next thing you know, you have a whole new group of people in control of a bond, and they may not be of the same mindset that you guys are, and want to reappropriate it or use it for other things, or scope creep, and continue to creep up in that scope of what we originally intended, and go beyond the spend, and become a financial nightmare for the city. Okay?
Jim Garrett, 11610 North Bayshore Drive. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, Mr. Manager, Mr. City Attorney, and City Clerk. I'm not opposed to a bond issue. When I lived in Oak Park, Illinois, I approved 2 of them as a voter, and I backed one of them with the library board when I stood on the library board, and one for the public school system for our 3 villages. I think the first issue is we need to address the water and sewer system. We need to do only one bond at this time, and we need to focus on our water and sewer system just inside the city and city. We need to focus on that. Once you show us that you can manage one bond for one issue, then come back in about 2 to 3 years and we will approve other bonds for a new city hall or for parks or wherever. That's number one. Number two, the election. We can wait probably until August. There's a Democratic and Republican primary scheduled by the county and by the state. I think we can wait to then and save a cost to have the election on the bond for that. That's number two. And number three, how much interest are we going to pay for this $155 million bond? How much is the interest over the lifespan of the bond, 30 years? That's my questions. I'm not against the bond issue, but let's make our priorities. Let's first work on our water and sewer system, because we don't want to end up like Flint, Michigan.
Sorry. Laura Hill, 13075 Griffin Boulevard. I'm really trying to get on board with this bond idea, and I've gone through all of the workshops. I have 3 issues that I'm still stuck on. First of all, I don't think tonight there should be a vote on this first reading because of the lack of access to the information on how much this is going to cost us. If we had had opportunity to look through the cost per $1,000, we'll understand if we can afford this. I don't understand how we can fully absorb how much this is going to cost each of us homeowners if we hadn't had access to that information until tonight. So that's number one. Number two, I would like more specifics. I understand what you're saying about flexibility by keeping things vague. However, flexibility also gives way to a lack of accountability. And you can use that same thing. 11 years ago, the county passed a general obligation bond, and we're still waiting for Cagney Park's money. Now, people have rotated in and out. I'd like to know that 11 years from now, there are specific projects that we should have received that you guys are voting on funding. So again, specific projects so that we can measure the success of this while we're paying the bill. And lastly, I don't think it's right at all, and I think it's a deal breaker to have a only mail-in ballot. I think if this amount of money, we all need to have a buy-in, a general sense of a mandate, and a mail-in ballot is going to severely decrease the amount of people who vote on this issue. And this is a big one for us, so we need a good representation of approval from our taxpayers. I also think that it can wait till August, because then the county will fund part of the election. We can piggyback on those funds, okay? Thank you very much.
Good evening, William Prevotel, 11950 North Bay Shore Drive. Sorry, I'm recovering from a cold. Mr. Mayor, I think your analogy with one's health of an individual and having an ailment and having a remedy is really quite appropriate. But I'd like to elaborate further on that analogy. Our city has not been maintaining itself in perfect physical fitness, doing the exercise it needs, eating properly, eating the right foods, living the right lifestyle. Our city, for decades now, has been chain smoking, sucking down burgers, living a wild life, being a very irresponsible city. And now our city needs a triple bypass. And that's what it is. This is sort of an emergency relief. This is not ordinary run-of-the-mill management of a city. Our city has unfortunately been, not from the people here necessarily, but for decades has been mismanaged and has not had the opportunity to properly grow, which would be in proportion to its infrastructure and its other needs. We've neglected this year after year after year. And today, we still have it, where our redevelopment is suffocated. We still are saddled with the same old infrastructure, and now we have to do something. Well, if we do something like this bond that may be expended in 2, 3, 4 years, that we will pay for 20, 30, 40 years, please do it so that we don't have to repeat this in 5 or 10 years, that you will allow proper redevelopment, that there are measures, there are safeguards in place so we don't get into this emergency situation again, that we will prepare for our future with the proper development to be able to get our infrastructure off the ground and lead a good future for decades to come. Thank you.
Public hearing is still open. Mike the Knife.
Good evening. Mike McDermott, 840 Northeast 127th Street. I don't want to be redundant in covering the points that many of them are very good points that have been given by the speakers before, because I have a little bit of time. But Henry made some comments, and Bill did too, in reference to continuums. And, you know, it's really nice that our city is really in a position of receiving so much recognition and so much positive PR. I just want to take just a minute and said, the mayor, and this is a publication, Biscayne Times, the mayor, city manager, and council deserve credit for progress over the past 4 years. Local government is more transparent and accountable than ever before. So that's our reputation, and that's where we're going. And that's why, you know, I want to congratulate everybody here on this council, the mayor and the council and the staff, the city manager, the deputy city manager, even the interim chief of police, and all the staff. Because of the continuum, because of the people in place, I think this bond is going to be. I think this bond is going to be very successful. You know, I can tell you from my personal knowledge in going to various cities around Miami-Dade, the Beacon Council, that North Miami's on the map. And many, many people have targeted North Miami as the next place to go. Even the South Florida Business Journal just recently, in its latest publication, their roundtable of where's the next market, where's the next city, etc., North Miami was mentioned. Now, they all mention what a lot of people have already said. Our infrastructure is old and needs to be replaced. We need new city facilities. We have older housing, but we have to start somewhere, and this is a place to start.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Good evening, Kevin Burns, 2065 Alamanda Drive. There is no doubt that the city needs improvement to the infrastructure and all the items that the city management has pointed out. I appreciate the fact that the management staff has brought this discussion up and that it's in the forefront of discussion. However, we cannot afford this at this time. The numbers don't add up. Find me the average house in North Miami that sells for $134,000. Let's take the average house in Keystone that sells for $1 million. What their tax bill is going to be is $3,100 per year for 30 years. Take a more realistic price of $300,000 of Central City. You're adding $900 a year to somebody's tax bill. We're not adding $134. These numbers do not add up. We all want to improve our city, but we don't need a Taj Mahal for City Hall. We don't need fancy guard gates. We don't need $6 or $8 million Gwen Margolis Center or the Griffin Center, make-believe stuff. We have 60,000 people, residents. We have 30,000 houses and structures in this city. What about the cost to the business owners and the property taxes that they pay? You're going to drive business out of here. It's already happening in Wynwood. The cost of building down there is too expensive. People are fleeing. That's why they're coming to North Miami, because we're an inexpensive city right now. This is not right, and definitely not a mail-in ballot. Thank you for your consideration, but please don't approve this tonight.
Thank you. Public hearing is still open on the item, but I see no one coming to the mic, so public hearing is closed. We'll come to the dais for further discussions and questions.
I mean, you want to go? Go ahead, Scott.
All right, I'm gonna try to. I got a lot going on with this. I'm not happy. I'm not happy that we're hearing it tonight. It's the first meeting after the new year. I'm not happy that we held a couple of town hall meetings in the lead up to the Christmas holiday because nobody was paying attention. My first inclination, and I've spoken with the manager and deputy city manager, to vote this down right now. But at some point, we have to move this ball down the field a little bit and know, do the residents want a bond or do they not want a bond? Because we keep punting and punting. And I know some have said punt till August. That'll be within 6 months of the next election, and this council will punt it again because they'll feel it's too close to an election and we don't want to muddy ourselves. I won't vote in favor tonight if it's a mail-in ballot and mail-in ballot only. That's a no-go right there. If I am to vote yes, between first and second readings, everybody better be ready. You better like pull in a superstar team, because there needs to be a website, there needs to be every financial bit of information there. One question I have, maybe you have the answer tonight, maybe don't. This projects out over 50 years based on property values.
No.
35 years, sorry. To 2054 or some such like that, based on property values. Sea levels will rise during that time, meaning that properties east, which are most valuable from a property value standpoint, are going to be devalued. We need to accept that. We need to understand that. Unless, and Bob Pashon was right on the same wavelength with me, no pun intended with the word wave, there's nothing in this that addresses sea level rise. So if we want to protect our property values east, what are we doing to address sea level rise? Because if the property values go down, that means everybody who's left is going to be paying more because we're going to still have to pay off the same bond. So, you know, I don't know, do you have information on how that's going to project out?
Yeah, I can't remember, well, let me answer your question this way. One of the things I just handed over to City Attorney is, and was something that I actually spoke into the record, in the category of infrastructure, we are adding as a project category, drainage and sustainability. So we can define some projects that will address sea level rise. The numbers, and you know, quite frankly, I disagree with people saying the numbers don't add up, because my numbers come directly from the county appraiser's office, and it's not based on sales, but what we actually are assessing our citizens. So the cost numbers that I have are actually based on it starts with our real assessed value. It takes the projected debt service based on the issuance of this bond. And like I said, it's issued in 4 different pieces. So that's the reason why you have the 6 years, because it takes us a total of 6 years to issue the complete 155, and then you have each piece has a 30-year amortization. That's why it goes to 2054. But the debt service amount in 2054 is 1.7 million. That debt payment for that last year. It actually gets up to the highest is 10.8 million in the middle of the life. And like I said, this stuff we do have a kick-ass website, excuse my French. It has the project categories. We built it, but we haven't brought it live yet because we wanted to make sure we had the conversation, and this stuff will be posted on it. So we are ready. In addition,
and the voting process, of course, that's up to
Right.
be. I mean,
Right.
that can
the
be
voting
amended.
process and the stuff that you
Oh, yeah.
asked for
Right.
are the items that are up for consideration for you to decide tonight.
Right.
So
The math is the math.
The
But
math
does-
is the
does
math.
the math consider sea level rise east and how that affects?
to the extent that I was conservative in estimating the increase in assessed value over the 30 years, I would say yes, it is, because I only increased the values by 3%. I left out, I could have done this, and this is something I would say I have a lot of expertise in.
True.
I've done.
What you just said.
Yes, I have a lot of
Okay.
expertise in this area. I have done numerous financial projections for every major capital project that the region has seen. The baseball stadium, the museums, the tunnel, all that stuff. My approach was conservative. It is as conservative as I've been with all of those projects. I did not include Solomia. Solomia alone should add between 2 and 4 billion to this number, and I haven't even reflected that. So when you look at, assume you wipe out 2 blocks of waterfront or 3 blocks of waterfront property between Keystone and Sans Souci, but then you add 4 billion or 6 billion in value in Solomia and in other parts, because our development activity in the city has started to increase. And I think you guys see it, because now we're having more debates about this project, that project.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, tonight's CRA meeting coupled with the city council meeting, I don't know that it was by design, but that has really said to me, wow, there really are a lot of people interested in investing and improving.
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
If you missed the CRA meeting, we were talking about 7 different properties across the city of people wanting to reinvest and improve and.
So when you
upgrade
add,
that.
when you subtract and add, my projection or my professional opinion is the numbers that I'm using are going to be low in the net. In the net. So, if you want, for the numbers exercise, actually professionally, I wouldn't go any more. The only thing I would do is maybe some major projects. I grab some value for Solomia. I would grab some value for Costco moving from North Miami Beach into the city. Beyond that, I wouldn't try to get deep into, all right, well, this mansion on this waterfront is going to be $40 million And that's market value, by the way. Again, our average assessed value is the number that I gave you. Because what people don't realize, yeah, you pay an amount for a house, but you haven't, there's a cap that you captured. And there are $75,000 worth of assessment exemptions that are out there right now, on average. So all of that coupled and playing together, that's what makes these numbers the numbers that they are. Are there houses that are worth well more than that, and that individual property owner is going to pay more for this bond based on the millage? Absolutely. But in average,
It
and
balances
that's
out.
why that's what I have. And we can run. There will be a calculator on the website that you can put in your assessed value. You'll have the years of the bond, and you can say in year 2036, I estimate my tax will be for that year $4,000 or whatever the number is, so that people have a fair assessment. I know that was one of the things that Carol was adamant about because of what happened with the MOCA bond previously. So the numbers,
If we approve this on first reading tonight, when does your website go live?
we can make it live tomorrow.
You mentioned Solomia, and I've already had a social media question posed to me during the course of the open public discussion. If we're about to get a bunch of money from Solomia, why do we need this bond? Mathematically, what's the difference between the income and the Solomia revenue that we're going to realize over the next X number of years versus the revenue that would be generated by the bond?
You ready?
Yeah.
Simple answer, CRA. Solomia is your funding source for the CRA for the rest of the entire city.
Right.
Via our contract with the county there and local, we agreed to only keep 50%, which was a recommendation that I made because we still needed some of that money. But as far as the debt service millage, we would get an assessment on the whole thing. That's why we'd have to do it structurally this way.
Say that to me again, please, in more layman terms.
Layman
If
terms.
we're about to get 10 million from Solomia over the next 10 years, whatever, I don't know, but
So for the purpose of ad valorem tax, general fund tax, a 10 million assessment, say the revenue that we expect to generate from Solomia based on our 7.5 ad valorem tax millage, assume that number is $10 million. But because it's in the CRA, we're only keeping 5 of it as a city.
Right.
To be used,
the other 5 goes to the county.
well, between the county and, to the CRA proper. So when it goes to the CRA, it can only be used in the CRA.
And for those on the east side,
They're not in the
they're not
CRA.
in the CRA. So any money coming off of Solomia,
50% of it is automatically, it's gone.
It's gone to the county.
No, it's gone to the CRA.
Which part that's gone to the county?
Whatever their assessment is.
right? And there's some of it will go to the school board, and some of it will
Correct,
go to the other
correct,
tax.
correct.
Tax people.
So however, by issuing a general obligation bond and you're now assessing a debt millage, whatever the total assessed value is on Solomia now gets millaged based on the total.
Yep.
And now we get all of that money to pay back these projects. Everybody will pay their fair share. At some point, the owners in Solomia will not be LaFrac and Turnberry. They'll be hopefully Larry Spring and Arthur Sori and Jeff Cazot will all get our apartments and we'll invest. Warren Henry is a property owner. All of the owners in the Oaks are individual property owners. Costco will be a property owner.
All right.
We'll have to come up with a more pointed message in answering that, because I can
Right.
foresee that being a big question. We're
I
about
got
to
it.
get all this revenue from Solomia.
Explain why all of it doesn't come.
Right.
Right.
Why do we need to
Okay.
why do we need to tax ourselves more? Because well, but most people don't know the CRA's boundaries. They don't know.
Correct.
So we're re-educating people on stories that we're familiar with because we're here every week, but not most people who are going to be voting.
Right.
So, okay, like I said, I'm hesitant. I'm willing to give a little leash tonight to see where this goes. If it's going to pass at the ballot box in April, it's going to need all 5 of us jumping up and down and doing
Absolutely.
this. And if there's not going to be all 5 of us jumping up and down, then we should.
It is the very words I said to you as manager in our retreat. when we talked about
All right.
this.
Any more questions?
May-
I think
May- can- yeah, that's
you want to yield to
Yes,
Bien-Aimé? That's fine.
And Mr. Mayor, I'm not opposed to the bond, but I'm not there yet because I'm surprised that the ordinance is on the agenda tonight. Because before recess in December, I asked Mr. Sore when we come back to set up a workshop for me to meet with the residents of the district to discuss the bond. Because as of right now, I don't know what they think about it. And I don't know how much it's gonna cost them on the property taxes. Until I have all those information, I won't be able to vote on it. Secondly, we were talking about $100 million. Then it was 120, and to now how much it is?
155. It was. The
I don't know how.
Well,
do we get to that number as of tonight?
Okay.
And you just sent over a spreadsheet, right, explaining how much it's gonna cost. They just put it on my desk now. That's mean I don't know. And if a residents calling me about the ordinance, I say I don't know nothing about it, because I was asking you to have a workshop. We can sit down with everybody, understand the need, what type of project they want in a bond, because we have 4 categories. I understand that. Some people are gonna need infrastructure, another group of people are gonna need affordable housing. And when we check, I was discussing affordable housing. I was hoping that 40% of the bond went to affordable housing. That's what I was hoping, and that's the city of Miami just approved a $400 million bond, about $170 million.
100 even.
No,
25% of it went to affordable.
Went to affordable housing. That's mean I won't be able to vote on it until we have a workshop. I discuss it with the resident, like well-advertised workshop, where we can discuss. You come with all the number, how much they're going to pay on the property taxes. Until I have all those answers in the workshop, I won't be able to vote tonight, because while I was waiting for the workshop, and you guys put it on the agenda.
Mr. Desulme?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first time this item was brought to the council, I think a few months back, I had reservation and I made my concerns very clear, and staff was able to at least accommodate most of them, I must say. They did held the town hall meeting. I attended very briefly, and staff and whoever residents that had the opportunity to attend were giving their opinions on different projects they wanted. As Councilman Bien-Aimé said, I'm not there yet, but at the same time, I'm not as far where I was before. I don't mind moving forward with the project, but it cannot be a mail-in ballot. If that's that, you lose me. If we said it's going to be for the residents, we know the city is in bad shape. I mean, I've lived here all my life since I moved from New York. I'm being 16. There hasn't been, like I said, in my area, you have, well, now we got 2 buildings. We got a Dollar Tree. So, so there.
You already said they're going to amend it.
Yes, so then I'm okay with that, with the amendment, but there are some concerns, and I've shared them with you earlier today. You had some times to talk to me about the concerns, and a lot of the items that I had and the issues, I think Arthur told me it was addressed at the town hall meeting. But again, what Councilman Galvin said, we all have to be on there. So Councilman Bien-Aimé, and Councilman Galvin and Vice Mayor Keys, and Mayor Smith, whatever that we need to do. No, that's another thing. We got to talk about that. We need to have it on. Yeah, we need to have like, Mr.
You're the one that bring it that
No. I did, but no, I did, which is fine. But Mr. Mayor, I think what we need to do, Mr. Attorney, is put it in the consent agenda. At least we are aware. That's all. Can we do that?